This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
You better be on your toes. The first two rounds of the Weekend Warriors pit the drivers against tracks less than 1.5 miles long with lap times under a minute. Today, they flipped the script with a whopping 4 miles as well as 2+ minute laps facing them. Bathurst will continue to force everyone to prove their skill and is likely to leave a few beaten and battered at the end. We'll see if this drastic switch catches anyone out as we get ready to watch round 3 of the Weekend Warriors, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Stefan Schlacher. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Steph, this is a monster of a track even for bigger, hired power cars. In these SRFs, it must really look overwhelming.
Joe, to some people, Mount Whitney is the mountain to climb. Others might say their favorite mountain is Mount Everest. However, for racers, there's no better mountain to climb than Mount Panorama. Especially in asthmatic cars like the SRF. It's all about momentum up the hill and then keeping the throttle open enough down the hill. Obviously to not accidentally cause a track blockage. In total, 23 turns are located around, as Joe mentioned, 4 miles of tarmac. A whopping 174 meters or 571 feet of height difference between Murray's Corner, the lowest point of the track, and McPhillamy Park on the opposite side of the scale. The challenges are as plentiful as the turns up and down this mountain, and the biggest one will be for sure the drive down the S's. But now, without further ado, let Joe Peak guide you a lap around the Mount Panorama circuit in our GSRC lap guide.
Alright, we're in the GSRC SRF, so let's do a lap around Bathurst. Hell Corner is incredibly important to your lap times, but a good exit isn't just about being fast by yourself. It's also about dealing with the incredible draft these cars put out. Slipstream battles are going to be a reality all race long. Jumping ahead, since it takes a while to get up the mountain straight, we brake for Griffin's Bend. This turn is pretty swift in the Spec Racer, and because the car doesn't have a whole lot of grunt, you want to get back on the power as soon as you possibly can. You're already getting a taste of how steep the grades are up and down the mountain just on the run up to the cutting. Now, in a faster car, the curved braking into here can be scary, but it's comparatively tame in this machine. Much like the corner before though, it's all about setting yourself up to get back on the gas as quickly as you can. This is another long, flat-out stretch, so up into Quarry and through all the following turns, it's mostly about minimizing your steering input and getting your shift points right. Reed Park is where it finally stops being such a steep climb, and that will blend into Frog Hollow. Another left-hander takes us to Sulman Park, where you want to hold as far right as you can because McPhillamy Park is easily the trickiest to nail. Turning in too early or too late can quickly end your day either way. Now we're going to ease onto the brakes over the crest of Skyline. Balancing the car through the S's will be a scary feat every lap, and then you've got to brake hard for the dipper. An important thing to remember in this car is to never fully lift while the car gets loaded into these corners, because the lift throttle oversteer will make it almost impossible to save. Try to hug the car to the right, but be aware that the car won't want to stop very quickly into Forest Elbow. Plus, the SRF likes to understeer, which means there's a danger of hitting the wall on the exit as you try to find speed onto the Conrod Straight. This is another section we'll want to skip and jump up to the chase. The kinked entry is easily flat out, but spotting your brake marker and being accurate will make or break your lap. Don't be surprised to see a few drivers come in too hard and clatter over the grass. Now, if you haven't managed to make the pass, Murray's Corner offers a last-ditch opportunity to get an overtake done. But watch out for the tall inside curve, because it'll make the car bounce around like a pogo stick and ruin the whole lap. From there, you'll want to just mash the power down on your way to the line, and hopefully you've now finished a lap around Bathurst. see a lap up and down the mountain, even with bits cut out, just because it takes so long to get around here. But as always, the Weekend Warriors is brought to you by Sim Stickers. Whether it's button boxes, steering wheels, or keyboards, they have you covered. You can find out more about them at simstickers.co.uk. Make sure and give them a look. And a big thank you goes out to the Sim Stickers crew for sponsoring this season and bringing it to air. Now, the championship has had 2 rounds in, but it's still a little weird, obviously, because we're not sure who all is going to show up for the entire season. Gaspers leads with a win and a second place. Daniel Sadro a little bit back there in second. Now, Ed Doherty is currently leading the Spec 2 championship, but is all the way up to third overall. You can see he jumped up 3 positions even. And Elson and Cofford stay where they are. Cofford also a Spec 2 driver. So we're going to be seeing those names here in just a second again, because let's go to the Spec 2 with Steph.
Yeah, and Joe, you already said it there. Edward Doherty, what a season so far for him. First place in the Spec 2, third place overall. Alex Cofford just 17 points behind, fifth in the total championship, second in here. And Geoff Jacobson, he's not too far away from Cofford, only 9 points between them. And then we have Dominic Bureau, 32 points behind. But look at that number, +8. That's how many spots he gained last round. Ian Haycox, familiar face on GSRC, he is 5th place, only 35 points behind your leader.
So the Spec 2 very hotly contested around here. Now let's give you a rundown of what this race entails, of course, and they are in round 3. You can see they've got 3 drop weeks. So as I said, this could still change around a lot in our points situation, just because even those first 2 rounds in this one could all go by the wayside if you have a bad race. A 40-minute race today, which means you can expect 1 pit stop. You might be saying, well, why is that? These cars usually have a pretty decent fuel cell. Well, they've limited them compared to what the real fuel cells can hold. So that's why they have forced a fuel stop for these cars in this race. And there you see they ration the points from 100 for the winner down to 25 no matter how many cars show up. They have penalty points if they have too many incidents. Every 10 incidents, they lose 3 points. And that can affect the championship as well, because those can add up if you're not careful. I mentioned the Spec 2 and Spec 1 just real quick too, that all drivers who have the 200 and above numbers are Spec 2. Anything below that is Spec 1. Once again, you're watching this on the iRacing Esports Network. Make sure and subscribe when you get the opportunity. Go to their YouTube page. If you haven't yet subscribed, you'll see a big red button that says so. Click that. You'll get all of the Weekend Warriors in your YouTube feed. We're watching qualifying right now, and, well, it took them a while to get that first lap in, Steph, but Gaspers, no surprise, has got the provisional pole. He's looking pretty strong, but look at this. Spec 2 driver on the front row, Alex Cofford, looking mighty fine.
Yeah, Alex Cofford, I was like, what? No way, he's only 4/10 away from David Gaspers, and Gaspers, he is a force to reckon with, but Alex Cofford really showing his worth here. And 4/10 behind Gaspers, that is quite some feat. But Steve Elson in 3rd place, he is 6/10 away from Alex Cofford, so he did put in a monstrous lap there.
Now these cars on this track are known for having a pretty heavy draft on those long, fast, straight steps. So obviously we should probably see some swapping back and forth there. But my big question is the mountain section enough of a difference maker that you could maybe drop the car behind you and get away from that draft? Is that going to split it up more?
Oh yes, that's most definitely gonna split you up, because it is such a technical section. It is rather fast, yes, but it still is incredibly technical, especially for the cars like this. You have to balance your on throttle and off throttle behavior, especially if you're on the brake. You have to always feed in that little bit of a throttle to not completely spin out, especially down the S's, where we might see some stuff happening. Then also let's not forget about Sunland Park. It is a rather interesting turn, because all of a sudden the track is gonna drop away from you and stuff like that. So even though on a paper it looks very easy, it is extremely hard to drive, especially in the Spec Racer 4.
Watching Paul Barbuza come around Murray's right now, as he's currently sitting without a lap time. This will be his first one. No, it won't, because he must have had an off somewhere. Yes, you can actually get offs on this track and survive in a few spots. So we switch over to Christopher Patterson, who now comes around. He sits 8th position with a 2:35.1. Well, that one didn't count for him either, it looks like.
Ian Haycox is coming over the line right now with a new fast lap for himself, improves himself by 4/10 and moves himself up into 7th place. So Ian Haycox with a good running so far.
Currently we've got 20 cars out in qualifying, and we could have more show up as we watch Aaron Vagley come across to set his time. He puts another best in at 2:36.0. That puts him in 15th. So with 20 cars starting, Steph, what's your over-under for how many cars actually see the checkered flag?
That's gonna be a tough ask right now. First to 16th, we have a nearly 5 or 4.5 second gap there between them, and I don't know. It is always hard, but not anything against these guys. They're gonna have to have quite some skill to be able to handle these Spec Racing Fords, but I'm expecting the top 10 to survive, and then the 11th and back will probably have had already a pit stop to repair some damages.
Yeah, and that's a good point, actually. They do have a fast repair in this car, so they can get back out there, but that's really only one get out of jail free card that they've got. After that, they've got to keep from smashing it into the wall a second time. Gaspers, who's still on provisional pole, now heading through the mountain himself and still has those 4/10 over Alex Coffer.
Whoa!
And that's not going to be a good one. It's not going to be one at all.
Are completely there. And that was the ever so tricky dipper section right there. Just a little bit too aggressive on the brake there, loses the car, and over she goes.
So let's see what Dustin Decker can do. He comes around as he sits in 8th position with only 1 lap time. Make that 2 lap times in, and that one's 2/10 faster. So he's now up to 7th with a 2:34.8.
Yeah, improved by 2/10, but only 1 position up because 6th place, that's another full 5/10 ahead of him, and that is Daniel Sadro in his number 51.
Surprised to see Sadro as far down as he is. He's had a pretty good season, but he's only got 1 time lap in. You can see that last one didn't count either for him. I'm not sure if he's just been having off tracks or if he's actually just restarting the laps here. But out of 5 attempts, only 1 counts. Wobolt, is this his first time lap? Yes, it is. A 2:41.9, but he is going to be the last of the cars to actually get a time so far.
Yeah, still about 3 minutes left for these guys to put in some laps. So about pretty much 1 lap left for all of them. Gary McAreevy will probably be the last guy to, or the first guy to have that last lap shootout. Right now, he will actually have a last lap shootout because he has not put in a time yet.
Yeah, Jerry McAreevy and Michael Shaw, the only 2 that don't have a time on the board. We've seen Jerry come from the back before, so that won't be anything new. As he works his way through the chase, getting the car wound up and then plunging down into Murray's corner. You and I were talking about the curb at the chase. Murray's corner is one that I've always found that I find a really disruptive curb.
Yeah, it can be. In some cars, it doesn't really do any harm to you. Sometimes it can really do some harm to you. Yeah, it always depends on how you hit it. You can hit it to some certain degree, but if you really mount the curb in a car like this that is very low to the ground, that doesn't have a lot of grip, it might just throw you off enough that you land on one side of the walls.
We watch Donald Fitterer now, currently 5th on the timing sheets with a 34.2. This lap is a 33.9. That improvement, unfortunately, only puts him closer to Fred Desai, but not past him by about 100th of a second difference between he and the 4th place driver. So he stays on row 3 for now. Bob Kern, in the meantime, this last lap didn't count for him, so he's got 1 more try around as we're under 2.5 minutes now. So everybody coming across, if they're not happy with it, gets one last opportunity. This is Daniel Sadro, one of those drivers that really probably wants to get himself farther up. He's on the outside of row 3. Let's see what this one's got. There's another lap in, but unfortunately a 10th slower. Actually, not even a 10th slower, half a 10th.
Yeah, not the best lap for him, as the next car coming over the line will be Gary Walbot in his 2:15 here. Let's see what he can do. 2:39.5, which will move him a little bit closer to Giulio Forsolin, but not up a position.
He's got 2 seconds to make up, so not sure that he'll be able to manage that. In the meantime, Todd Hansen coming through. Is he going to be able to start another lap? I think he'll have enough time here. So it'll be a little tight.
Yeah, I think he has enough time. Still about 15 seconds left. Todd Hansen not too switched about with the Hansen brothers, but he goes into the pit lane.
He's going to turn it down. And speaking of that pit lane entry, you talk about needing to practice certain curbs and whatnot. That is a tricky pit entry as we get the checkered flag out.
I knew you were going to talk about it at one point. I have some bad memories with that leading a GT3 race. Going a little bit too fast and hitting that ever so daring tire wall.
Oh, we got a time on the board for Jerry McAreevy, and it's good enough for the second row.
Wow.
2:33. Very nicely done in the dying stages of this qualifying. Jeff Jacobson does not improve. What about Donald Fitter? Is he on the outside of row 3? He's bumped Daniel Sadro down one since we last looked. Actually, no, it was McAreevy that bumped him down, I should say.
Yeah, Donald Fitter right now in 6th place. Only a 100th between himself and the top 5. Let's see what he can do.
That'll do it.
Improve.
4th place for the 111. Another driver finding something in the last lap he has available. Bob Kern not happy with his, so he's just going to duck it into the pits. What about Daniel Sadro now? Down in 7th place. One of our championship contenders. Missed out last season. Can he finally get it? Oh, he's been aggressive with that curb on the chase in practice, and he's aggressive here still in qualifying. Only one more corner to go. He's looking good right now based on his time. Can he keep it within the bounds? It looks like he does. What's it going to hold? A 2:34.1. That's 0.2 quicker, but he stays in 7th place. And that is everybody. All the drivers have taken their lap, so our grid is set. Let's go through your starting order here today for round 3. David Gasper's on the pole by a whopping 0.4 of a second over Alex Crawford. Jerry McAreevy took a while to get one in there, and he finally did with a 3rd place qualifying. Donald Fitter behind him, P4. Stephen Elson will be rounding out the top 5, with outside of him in row 3 belonging to Fred Desai. Daniel Sadro only good enough for 7th today, with Dustin Decker 8th beside him. Ian Haycox will be starting P9, and Christopher Patterson rounds out your top 10.
Zachary Lefay only in 11th place, but he is already your 4th place driver in the Spec 2 class. Todd Hansen 5th in the Spec 2 class, or 12th overall in the grid. Sean P. O'Donnell in 13th. Bob Kern only down in 14th. I'm not really used to seeing him all the way down there. Jeff Jacobson 15th on the grid. Aaron Fergele all the way down in 16th with his 2:47 machine. Paul Barbusa in 17th. Giulio Forsolin takes up 18th place on the grid, with Gary Walbot rounding out your 19 car field. Or actually, no, we have also Michael Shaw. He's still in the session, down in 20th place.
I do see Michael still in here, so he should start. We'll see if he grids up or not, but he didn't seem to really take the car out for a qualifying. Maybe he just feels like it's better to be at the back and see what happens from there, as we just let the clock tick down before we start gridding up around here. As we said, it should be a draft race from what we expect, but it also will be an attrition race of sorts. So we could see some drivers gain a lot of positions just by keeping it pointed forward and keeping it on the track. We'll keep you abreast on who are winners and losers in terms of positions in that sense.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and one thing we really have to watch out on lap 1 will be the cutting. With the cold tires, much grip to the postal, we might see some people cutting it a little bit too close with the walls or stuff, or with other drivers on the cold tires, and spin themselves out and have a little bit of an awkward moment in the cutting.
Yeah, let's really hope we don't get a track blockage. And while it is a rolling start, thankfully, they start just before the cutting. There you can see the cars all coming out to the grid. So
That's
we don't have to wait for them to go completely up and down the mountain on what is already a pretty long lap at speed for these cars. There we see one of our HJ Motorsports drivers, the number 219 out there, as that would be the car of Alex Cofford.
Now, the question is, can Alex Cofford challenge David Gaspers into turn 1?
I'm not sure if he will or won't. We've seen him keep pace with him before. I believe it was Phillip Island where we saw a great battle between the two of them. But Alex knows this game, so I'm not sure that he would essentially want to try and get ahead of him, or if he'll just try and ride behind in the draft. I guess we'll find out in just a few corners' time, because the Mustang pace car has led them away, and they're now coming up towards the chase. We'll get going for 40 minutes of racing out here at Bathurst Mount Panorama Circuit. Coming up to the pit entry, the Mustang will likely leave them a little bit early here. Duck away, and then it's a sharp left-hander. How soon will Gaspers take the gas, though? I suspect he's going to wait until the very exit of this corner and then suddenly gun it. And indeed, he does get on it, but he does not get a jump over Alex Cofford. And indeed, McAreevy also got a great run. He's already thinking about second place. Cofford has to back out of it, being pinned in on the outside into hell corner. He's going to fall down to third on the first corner instead of going for first.
Yeah, and that means that David Gaspers already has quite a bit of a lead at hand, already a second over Alex Cofford, who is still side by side with Gary McAreevy down a mountain straight the very first time in behind the draft that have already started between Steve Elson and Donald Fitterer.
And they're losing touch with David Gaspers as Cofford nearly squeezes McAreevy off track. McAreevy goes for the over-under and gets a good launch off of Griffin's. So Cofford now going to lose that spot. He briefly got back, and another because Steve Elson is through.
Everyone checks up ever so slightly for the cutting. Everyone stays clean though so far through the first part of this lap.
Yeah, so far so good. Hopefully no track blockages up ahead, but McAreevy dropped off by almost 2 seconds to our leader Gaspers. This is very good news for the number 23, because if he can keep away from that draft, he doesn't have to worry about anybody catching him, I doubt, today based on qualifying pace.
Sadler was very flirty there with the inside wall of McPhillamy Park as they make their way for the very first time down the SS into the dipper. And Alex Cofford very wide there through the dipper. Donald Fitterer thinking about it, but slots in behind yet again.
Well, despite Cofford's pace in qualifying, he seems to be struggling here on the first lap to get the car underneath him, and already he's going to be passed by Fitterer. The number 111 gets a good launch out of Forest Elbow, doesn't even need the slipstream, and he is gone. So it looks like there he goes. He slots back in line just as the car behind him now ducks out. And that is Fred Desai, who's looking for a 2-for-1. I think he's going to get it. He's ahead by the time they hit the braking for the chase. Poor Alex Cofford is not out of it yet because Dustin Decker now trying to get a position on him. That doesn't quite work out. Sadro rocks up to the back of them from 8th place.
And with him comes also Christopher Patterson in his number 17 machine. So this battle really is starting to heat up ever so slightly. Yes, Alex Goffard with another mistake there through Murray's corner, and here now comes Dustin Decker to the inside.
And such was the pace advantage that Cofford had in qualifying that this is finally now the Spec 2 lead that he's giving up. Dustin Decker now inherits that 6th overall and goes to the front of a 4-car train. The mountain straight. They all kind of slot into line. A couple of them bump drafting behind our view from from Daniel Sadro. Too wide ahead with Decker to the outside, Cofford to the inside. Cofford takes it back.
Hit the inside curb though and nearly sent himself way too wide there into Dustin Decker's car. But here comes Daniel Sadro around the outside of the cutting. Can he make it stick? No, he can't. Dustin Decker survives another turn in his 8th place or 7th place.
We had a horrible exit for Christopher Patterson. There you can see him, the red, white, and black car. Lost about 3 positions there. And he's currently side by side with Ian Haycox trying to come back. He's got the inside of these next series of corners sweeping along the parks at the top of the mountain. He gets it back now, and Haycox settles for 11th once they hit McPhillamy.
For the second time they go down the SS, one of the trickiest part in the Spec Racer 4 because of the oversteer. This car generates off the throttle.
So far, I haven't seen anybody lose it through here. Famous last words. But it looks like everybody's kind of taking it a little bit easy. And there we go. We got someone in Forrest Elbow, though.
Todd Hansen was that. That was on the entry, though, and it seems like he just overcooked it with the steering wheel, losing his car just there and then.
Yeah, oof, man, you could see that the oversteer just almost comes immediately. He's very lucky that everybody managed to get around him, honestly. That could have been a lot worse. Second place, awful close between McAreevy and Steve Elson. They come to complete another lap, and they've pulled away from 4th place Donald Fitterer by 3 seconds now. And are they gaining on Gaspers, or is Gaspers losing them?
Gaspers is losing them. He lost them by 1/10 the last lap.
Oof. Yeah. I think he lost them, and then he decided to fly to another country while he was at it. Meanwhile, they come up the mountain straight, climbing back uphill. Not a lot of chug in these cars. So as they slowly pick up speed, now reaching about 100 miles an hour, Steve Elson, we ride on board of this black and gold machine. The draft picking him up, but not enough to give him a chance to pass into Griffins.
In behind 4P6, Dustin Decker just got overtaken by Daniel Sadro. Sadro now up to 6th place, drafted past down the mountain straight and up the mountain. They once again go. Dustin Decker with a horrible exit though out of the quarry bend, and that leaves the door open for Alex Goffard, who retakes the Spec 2 lead from... Or does he?
Well, momentarily, as he tries to go up the inside of the cutting. Oh, and they come together slightly. This is getting awful intense for the Spec 2 lead. Dustin Decker becoming aggressive despite an ill-handling car in a few corners. That's allowed Christopher Patterson to catch up to them. And also, they've fallen well behind Daniel Sadro, who I imagine is not too disappointed to lose that group.
No, most definitely not, but also Fred Desai and Donald Fitzer really got away from these guys fighting it all out. Oh, McAreevy.
That's McAreevy, first victim of the S's and the Dipper. Completely turned around, waiting for the field to give him an opening, and he's got to wait for just about everybody to come through before he can finally accelerate away. From 2nd to 19th, and the last car running because we've lost for Colin. Did he even hit the wall there?
We were a tiny little bit late there on the replay because he did hit, there we go. He's gonna hit the left side curb there, and that's gonna completely send him there. He tries to save it with a lot of brake, but Yeah, just goes around there, and then he doesn't hit the wall or ever so slightly on the left front, and then backs it actually up into the wall. So yeah, very unlucky situation there for Gary McGreevy.
Love this onboard from Steve Elson, though. Just scraping through. But did Elson actually clip the wall there himself? Oh, he did catch it.
Fitterer just also had a very interesting incident into the chase. I actually can't tell you what happened there because he just went straight on.
I can tell you, he hit the wall coming down into Forrest's elbow. He just glanced at it. It wasn't very hard. We don't need to go to it. And I think he must have had some sort of steering damage because
actually,
just said,
Joe, that actually started by avoiding the Gary McGreevy incident, and he actually clipped very hard the left side wall into the dipper. So yeah, I think he broke his steering arm there on the left side and had to come into pit lane to get himself that fast repair.
is that going to be enough time for him to actually get to the end is the question, because we're just about to the pit window. Well, here's hoping for him. He can actually take that as his one scheduled stop. Meanwhile, back up to Cofford, still in 5th overall, leading our Spec 2. You're not missing much of anything up at the front. This is where the action is, following Decker. Behind him in 6th, Patterson 7th, Acox 8th, and Aaron Vagley in P9.
Yeah, and it does seem like that Don Fitra did not take service because it was only a 8th.
We got a car off in the S's. Desai losing positions. He could pull it up into that little runoff area if he wanted to maybe get it turned around. That's what he's trying.
He does it.
Can get disqualified for going backwards on the track too far, but I think, oh, this is not good. Oh. Well, great heads up by for Colin for not getting into him, although he slows up and lets him through. This is Fred Desai's perspective of the incident.
Yeah, Joe, it was a little bit of a different incident from what we saw from McGreevy, as he lost it on his own a little bit over the bumps on the left kink there of the S's, and because of that noses it into the wall, and then a little bit waits there and realizes his option of going into that little paved runoff area.
Change for the Spec 2 lead. Dustin Deckers managed to get by Alex Cofford. That puts him up into P4 with the troubles for Fred Desai.
Yeah, but right now it does seem like Patterson is the faster car of these threes, and he probably will try to do the same thing as Sadro, Elson, Elson did do so far in this race.
And Todd Hansen has come into the pits. He was one of our drivers that we saw get into the wall at one point. Well, yeah, you can really see how much he got into the wall. The 224 cruising down, probably going to take his spare car. Speaking of cars with damage, just before we switched to him, we did see Steve Elson and how much was on his as we take a look at the battle between Decker and Cofford. Cofford going to retake it, as unfortunately for Christopher Patterson, he has to check up with Decker going slow through Griffins, and that offers a chance for Ian Haycox to think about it, then think better of it, and slap back in the line.
Yeah, and one thing we kind of have to mention is with all the problems we have seen so far, David Gaspers, he has opened up the lead so far up to 11.2 seconds over Steve Elson.
It's going to be another whopping on the field from David Gaspers as he looks for his second win of the season, third straight podium. Through the top of the mountain over Skyline. And Dustin Decker not willing to risk anything quite yet with desperate moves here through all of the narrow canyons along the mountaintop. Oh, and a big bobble from Cofford, though, coming through the dipper. Slows him up. Decker does not try a pass from that. Down the hill they go. Great exit off of Forrest's elbow from Cofford, but not good enough to get him out of the slipstream from Dustin Decker.
Yeah, but how about the race of Aaron Fergile in behind of this group from 16th all the way up to his current position of 8th place, gaining himself 8 positions, maybe making that a few more if he can get past some of these 4 guys ahead of him.
Yeah, he might be our biggest climber at this point, with Aaron now waiting patiently behind this crew. They come up to the line to start off another lap. So who is going to use the draft this time, coming up the mountain straight? We've got some takers for regular pit stops. I believe Bob Kern coming in, Jeff Jacobson as well. As you can see them all in a line. It looks like off the corners, Crawford getting himself repeatedly good exits to try and keep himself safe as Patterson pokes his nose out. They'll have the inside coming up to Griffin's Bend. The climb up to the braking zone. Patterson a little bit stronger in there. What about off the corner? Wow.
What a save from Patterson there, but that leaves the door open now obviously for Decker. Also, Ian Haycock's had a bit of a run. Oh, that is a bump and run, and there goes into the wall Dustin Decker.
It's just too marginal for stuff like that. And Patterson, to his credit, he's tried to slow up to let Decker back through, but Decker is way too damaged. This is from on board. Decker gets the shove, and he's trying so hard to save it. Oh.
Yeah, he got shoved very hard there by Christopher Patterson, who, I don't know, it seemed like Patterson lost his braking point there a little bit and then wasn't able to stop his car in time for Dustin Decker, who goes hard into that outside wall, and his race is done.
It looks like when he tried to counter steer, the car unfortunately just went out on him, because I think he could have maybe kept it out of the wall, but unfortunately with it losing control like that, it just was on a trajectory. Meanwhile, this is our leader, the number 23 of David Gaspers, now up to 14 seconds ahead.
And
what happened
I'm sorry, but something happened to Steve Elson, because he's really slow right now down Conrad Strait and just got overtaken by Daniel Sadro.
I think it happened a while ago, because I'm looking back and Sadro was with him for a while. You know what? I think this might have been the damage on Steve Elson. I think it was just slowing his straight line speed so much that eventually he got run down, and Sadro has gone all the way up to second from 7th on the grid. So despite all of my doomsaying, Sadro has recovered from a qualifying that put him in the middle of the pack and come up to a podium. Don't think a win is necessarily likely on the cards, but you never know.
Steve Elson into the pit lane. He took the fast repair just now, and he is pretty much, I think, our first really scheduled pit stopper. Actually, no, Bob Kern did already pit, so he is currently leading the field of the pitters. Michael Shaw is in pit lane 2. Where's Bob Kern? Bob Kern coming out of the last turn right now, so Elson, easily taking over that position.
Yeah, he comes out just in front of Gary Wobolt, but Gary won't have the same amount of pace as Steve, so I don't think he's going to want to let him by. Instead, it looks like Wobolt might just ride the coattails of the UK&I driver. Those of you thinking, well, the battle for Spec 2 seems to have settled down then, well, bad news if you're an Alex Crawford fan. Aaron Vagley is still up there, although he's dropping off a little bit, and Ian Haycox. Both of those drivers are Spec 2. Here we're on board with Haycox. So if they're within touch of Crawford, they could also challenge for that Spec 2 lead, which is already up to the podium, though that is due to pit stops slightly.
Aaron Fergile making his way through the Brent. That's a wall.
Oh, what a disappointing mistake there from Aaron. He still has the spare car, And I guess he's within his pit window, so he could bring it in. Let's watch from on board.
Yeah, just a little bit too frenzied there with the off-throttle oversteer through the dipper and just completely gets caught out by it. I think even his car did sit on the ground there and thus loses the rear and into the wall. Aaron goes. But yeah, the good point for him is that it's only a few more kilometers pretty much to the pit lane and he can take his pit stop and his spare car.
Almost forced into taking it, but should get him to the end of the race. It loses him ground on Ian Haycox, who elects to stay out this lap.
Now the interesting part is, can Ian Haycox catch up to Alex Crawford, which is about, let's see, 2 seconds between the two.
Right now our highest driver who has pitted is Steve Elson. Vegley is probably going to drop behind him. And indeed, he does. 219 of Alex Crawford there we saw on screen as well. There goes Steve, now promoted up into P9.
Aaron with a rather lengthy stop there compared to everyone else, about 2 to 3 seconds longer stationary than everyone who has taken their pit stalls so far.
Yep, he's going to come out just ahead of Bob Kern, but not very far ahead. I think all the time that he lost from that damage really put Aaron back quite a bit. And he did have a slow stop. It was 13 seconds. So when are we going to see our leaders in? We're at the halfway point. They tend to go a little bit long, but they have no incentive to come in at this point with traffic being pretty non-existent for David Gaspers. And at 16 seconds, frankly, I'm not sure that he can even see anybody else on track at any point.
No, I don't think so. He can actually see someone, especially down Conrad with the big hill in between there. Sadler just coming up.
Ooh,
Donald
John P.
Fitzgerald?
O'Donnell.
Oh, O'Donnell.
Oh, and you know what? He actually had some contact with Jerry McAreevy as well. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't Jerry already take his spare car?
He did not.
I remember he only backed into the wall. Wow, that was a hard hit for the Canadian.
No, Gary McAreevy did take his spare car. So with that, Gary McAreevy might be down here, but he had a lot of net code with John P. O'Donnell, so maybe he was saved.
Significant damage on the left side from what we're seeing on screen. He elects to stay out, as Gaspers does not. Gaspers is going to come in. This hands the lead over to Sadro and brings out David right behind Alex Crawford. Crawford has yet to stop, mind you. So he still needs to come in. But David Gaspers naturally returns to the track as the highest car who has pitted. Something happened to Barbuzzi here. Ooh.
That is... Oh, that's the pit lane entrance. Oh, no. That is one way to enter the pit lane. And I wouldn't say I would recommend it.
Well, the funny thing is, that's not the first person I've seen do that. He'll probably get a penalty for unsafe pit entry. But, you know, I think for him at this point, it's better than going completely around the track. Just gets out from underneath him, smacks the wall, says now's as good a time as any to come in for a stop.
I wonder what kind of penalty that is. I think that's a 10-second penalty you get for unsafe pit entrance.
I can't remember. Yeah, it's either 10 or 15. One of those. Either way, it's going to hurt a little bit. But again, I think it probably outweighs the other option for him.
Right now we have a little bit of a fight for the 10th position in a race it is between Bob Kern, who did already pit, against Aaron Fögerli, who also did already pit. So this battle is for position, not only in the standings but also on the track.
I'd say that Sadro is running well, but not well enough to get himself ahead of Gaspers. So as we watch our Spec 2 leader give way to what we expect to be the overall leader when all is said and done. Pretty sure... No, I thought Sadro was going to come in, but he's going to stay out.
Oh, and Todd Hansen found the wall yet again about a lap ago. Don't need to go there. Very hard impact. He nearly actually did what we were talking, or he actually did what we were talking about into Murray's corner. On the high curb, he rolled his car and beached it.
Ian Haycock's coming into the pits. And we're only waiting at this point on Zach LeVay, Jerry McAreevy, and Christopher Patterson and Daniel Sadro to come in for their stops. Not exactly a track where you want to push the limits on fuel if you don't think you can make it.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna save enough fuel if you're only having like 0.8 of a lap left in your fuel tank, because you're gonna use quite a lot here around the Mount Panorama circuit.
Put the clutch in and coast, I guess. Because Ian Haycock can't do that. He's climbing uphill, up the mountain straight. Behind him, Vaguely has now been caught by Bob Kern. This is a battle for 9th, but should be for higher positions once we get a couple cars into pit. A bit wide there coming through Griffin's Bend for Vaguely. I'm surprised that we have not seen McAreevy come in and stop yet. I would have thought as soon as he got that damage, he'd be in and out, unless my timing and scoring is telling me fibs again.
Honestly, I do not know either, because I don't think Jerry McAreevy did pit after his second incident, but I was pretty sure McAreevy did pit after his first one.
I thought so too.
Yeah, I'm really a little bit confused right now.
As we watch on board, Bob Kern gives you a good idea of just how fast they're coming through and down into the dipper here. This is our closest fight on the track here for P9. Should start seeing more drivers come into the pits, though, because that pit window is getting close to the end, but Sadro's going to stay out for one more. Thinks he's got enough for that. McAreevy's not. He's finally coming in. Well,
into the gravel trap.
Yeah, not the most graceful of manners, mind you.
So let's see if he is taking a fast repair or not, as also Zachary LeVay comes into pit lane to join the UK9 driver in his pit party.
And I believe this will lose them out to Ian Haycock's and Vaguely. And he did take a quick repair. So there we go. This is the first stop for Jerry McAreevy. Where does that put him out, though? Looks like 9th position, just behind Bob Kern.
But obviously with less momentum, so he will probably lose the draft up into Quarry Bend. But if he has a good mountain section, which I'm pretty sure McAreevy does, he might be able to catch up with these guys again and fight for maybe even an 8th place, because Ian Cox is not too far ahead of Aaron Fogarty.
I'm pretty certain that Jerry's going to have enough underneath him to run these two down, especially now that he's got a completely fresh car. I expect that he'll be able to close those 2 seconds up to Kern.
Oh, Cofford! Cofford just crashed out of the dipper.
Oh, no. And here he was having such a good race. Looks like the dipper's actual dip is what got him. Bottomed out, maybe?
Yeah, it does seem so that the car bottomed out, did lift up the rear tires, and around he went. Not able to save it. He jumped right away on the brake, but just not able to avoid that wall and heavy damage to his car.
Here's our overall leader right now. Daniel Sadro, with 11 minutes to go, has to finally come in and take his fuel. And the pace of Gaspers is such that Sadro, despite being second when Gaspers pitted, Gaspers just coming around now as Sadro trundles through. So he almost had a full pit stop over Sadro.
Here comes Christopher Patterson and Alex Cofford to join Sadro in the pit lane. So that means it's the end of the pit window for everyone.
Indeed. And Sadro should be getting out just ahead of Steve Elson. And in fact, he's coming out now. Elson, in the meantime, is coming up to Hell Corner, and he's going to be well enough behind that this is easily second place for Sadro as long as he keeps his pace up and keeps the car clean. There you see in the background, that distant black dot is Elson.
In behind, though, it is going to get interesting between Ian Haycox and Chris Patterson, alongside with Alex Cofford. Cofford actually having to slip in behind everyone else, and Ian Haycox not able to get up to the back of Christopher Patterson. So Patterson, with his overcut, really did put himself a little bit of a gap up to Ian Haycox and Aaron Fergley, who did catch up to the back of Ian Haycox the last lap, and he tries to not do anything into quarry back.
Just going to let Jerry McAreevy get up into P8. But we could be seeing a 5-car fight here very soon. Actually, Vaguely is looking to go to the inside of Ian Haycox. Oh, does he brush the wall there? Through the cutting, it looked like he just glanced it, and I'm seeing damage.
I'm seeing damage too on Aaron Fergley's car. That really is going to put a little bit of damper on his hopes for a possible 5th place.
Straight line speed cannot look good after that. You can see the front of the car pretty scraped up. Oh, and we've had another incident. Zach LeVay. This one also in the cutting.
Yeah, as Joe said, in the cutting, you're gonna see he's gonna lose it on the outside. Over the white line he goes, and because of that loses the rear a little bit, noses it into the wall, and then he does a little bit of a 400-point turn to get himself.
Oh, and Alex Cofford, it goes worse for him. Spun out of Forrest's elbow. Don't think he hit anything.
Too eager on the throttle there, Joe, for Alex Cofford. Does not hit anything as he spotted right, just a lot of ego lost on the spot.
Yeah, he falls all the way to P10, sadly. And vaguely got by Haycox. So damage or no, I'd say that he's feeling pretty good in that car. Haycox is not going to take that sitting down. He looks to the inside. That comes back to the racing line. McAreevy says, if you won't take it, I'll give it a shot. Doesn't work for him. McAreevy stays in 7th. Riding behind them is still Bob Kern. Now the tail of what is 4 cars instead. Vaguely leading them in 5th position with about 3 seconds up to Patterson. But the more they fight, the more they're going to start to lose ground with the number 70. And this is important because this is for the Spec 2 lead, as McAreevy is going to split it up momentarily. He gets into 6th. He's thinking about 5th. He's to the inside of Vegley.
Oh!
Oh, but too far inside, and he glances the wall as he loses the rear.
Glances the wall. Don't think he really got any damage from that. Continues on as we're gonna take you on the replay. Into the chopper we go on that replay.
Thought he was going to have this one done. Looks like caught a little curb and that car started to bounce, and away it went. Now the good news for our Spec 2 drivers is that McAreevy falls back. Now he could still catch them, but it is now a 3-car fight for that Spec 2 lead. Vegley ahead of Haycox, ahead of Kern.
I don't think we were able to say this too often yet, where we had a 3-way fight for that Spec 2 win.
Yeah, it's tended to be one-sided in the past couple seasons. Someone just runs away with it, and nobody can seem to catch them. That could have been Crawford, but he's made many mistakes today.
You might have seen it on the bottom of your screen, but Gary McAreevy went straight on at the S's, trying to catch these guys a little bit too much. But here goes Ian Haycox now past Aaron Fugler.
He moves up into 5th. And the British driver will probably stay there. Is this a long enough straight that if you get past, you can repass someone? It looks like Aaron might think about it.
Most definitely you can. Aaron Fugler tries to do exactly that. To the inside, he goes off to chase. Does he make it happen? Does he stick on the corner? Yes, he does. But here comes Ian Haycox on the switcheroo.
Just barely kept it on the track. A little too hot into it. Aaron falls back to 6 once more. Ian Haycox says, thank you very much. And with 5 minutes to go, 5.5 minutes to go, 3 laps left, I believe.
I believe you're right, and you know who all of this fighting is helping. It is Gary McAreevy, just a few more car lengths behind. Bob Kern, he once again takes an off track out of turn 1, but he is pretty much back to the back.
Not the best race for the 67, I'm afraid, so don't think he'll feel too good about this one, even if he gets all 3 of these cars to another side-by-side bit of action developing at the front of the train. It is going to be Aaron to the outside with Ian to the inside, and there's just not enough grip off that racing line.
And here comes Bob Kern trying to do 2 in 1. Does he succeed? So he does break. So he's gonna slot in behind Aaron Fugler actually. And here comes Gary McAreevy. That was a nearly an awkward situation between the two, but both show very much track awareness there.
Yeah, great situational awareness from McAreevy. Saw what was happening, used the shot off the corner. Now he's going to give a little bit of draft help to Vegley up ahead of him, see if they can run down Haycox. They come through McPhillamy up to Skyline. This caught out McAreevy a little bit last time through. This time looking a little safer.
Ian Haycox really struggling with that dipper. Look at how much Aaron Fugler was able to catch up back to the back of Ian Haycox just that one turn, and now he got the draft help. But Gary McAreevy, I think he's gonna try to do 2 in 1 here down the straight.
I suspect he'll be able to take that, depending on how much damage is on the front of his car, but hasn't seemed to hurt Aaron, who is doing it once more to Ian. Here comes Jerry. He gets a double run with 2 slipstreams coming at him at once, but he's boxed in as they hit the chase side by side once more. This time, though, much better job and around the outside. A beautiful move by Vegley.
Ian Haycox did hit. Oh, Gary McAreevy.
McAreevy off, and into the wall goes Haycox, and Bob Kern hits him. Well, that just took out all 3 of the cars behind Aaron. You talk about perfect timing for him to make that pass. He's ahead of it all, and what was going on there?
I think that was an easy mistake from Ian Haycox. just follows the car ahead and loses track of where he is actually on track and runs into the side of Gary McReevy, who, because of ever so slightly net code, got spun around on the front of Ian Haycox's car, who goes into the wall, and yeah, Bob Kern and nowhere to go there, and just completely smacks the rear end of Ian Haycox.
Haycox came into the pits to get repairs. Kern was able to continue on, and McAreevy was able to continue on. Kern is up in 7th, Jerry in 9th. He actually just got passed by Alex Cofford. But this guy right here, at 20 seconds ahead of the next car behind, has been unfazed by it all. Probably isn't even aware of any of this happening, because he's going to get the white flag this time by. And I suspect that this is simply going to be a victory lap for the number 23.
This is Bathurst. It's not over until you have stepped out of the car, turned the keys, and gave it to your crew chief.
So you're saying I'm in trouble if I don't give the keys back to the crew chief?
Exactly.
As he comes around Murray's, 23 more corners to go for David Gaspers.
Oh, McReevy once again into the wall.
Oh, I wonder if that's some leftover damage that helped that.
Gary McReevy into the dipper a little bit, yeah, I would say a little bit too eager there to get back that position over Alex Cofford, and just loses it out of the dipper and into the left wall he goes, very hard parking his car on the right side away from the racing line, and that's his race sadly done.
And that was 1.5 laps from the finish for Jerry McAreevy. Sure, he would have liked to have seen the checkered flag, but that leaves us with, I believe, only 14 cars left. And incredibly, all the cars still running except for one are on the lead lap, and that is John O'Donnell. With his incidents, he went and got repaired, so he's many laps down at this point. But we ride on board with Gaspers, getting a view of how to do this right, coming through the mountain section, and how to be fast.
David Gaspers through McPhillamy Park for the very last time. Skyline now goes into the SS section, down the hill, goes on the curb very hard there. The dipper always treacherous, thus perfectly maneuver through himself there. Now it's only the forced elbow left, and he has pretty much 2 kilometers of straight ahead of him.
With a little bit of a wiggle in the middle of it as he gets on the power, builds up the speed. He was second in the first race, but he was only barely beat by Kane Halliburton. He came back at Monza last week and ran away with that one, pulling the victory on the junior course. A very short track after a very short track, and then we come over to a long one. And this man's still fast no matter where you put him. Into the chase with 2 corners to go, out of the chase now. The number 23 up to 22 seconds ahead of the next car back. Murray's corner is all that stands between him and wind number 2 out of 3 races. David Gaspers takes victory here at Bathurst.
And because he said he had a wiggle there in the middle of the first elbow, you know what they say, a wiggle day keeps the doctor away.
Well, I meant there was a wiggle in the middle of the straight more that he had between himself and the finish line. But Daniel Sadro is coming around Murray's corner himself. Nice run from 7th to 2nd. He's got to be pretty happy with that. And Elson, unfortunately, finishes 3rd when he could have a little bit better, but still not too bad today on the podium. How about Christopher Patterson, though? Actually, is Patterson going slowly?
Is out of fuel, yes. So Aaron Fugely might be looking at the top 4 finish. No, it's not.
He's got this, yeah. He was just a little too far back. I think if the finish was farther on the front stretch, he could have had him. Vaguely with a top 5 from 16th, but he wasn't our biggest climber. How about Michael Shaw? Remember I said he didn't put a time in? From 20th to 6th for him.
I'm gonna be with Soup there. That's not counting.
Alex
He didn't
Cofford.
even try.
Yeah, Alex Cofford with a 7th and Bob Kern behind him. 11th is a little bit contested here, or at least it was at one point. That was
It
Wobolt,
was a battle until
Haycox.
Ian Haycox hit the wall out of the dipper.
Did he hit? Oh yeah, you're right. He did. His car pretty torn up. Patterson was unhappy about something on the radio I heard there, and I'm not sure what. Vaguely, by the way, was your Spec 2 winner as we watch Haycox bring it home, the last of the cars to finish here. We'll come back after a moment after we see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC, and then we'll give you the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. Stick around. Back here to Mount Panorama Circuit, better known as Bathurst, or just the mountain to some drivers, and the driver who conquered it today was David Gaspers by 22 seconds over Daniel Sadro, who I kind of doubted from his qualifying, but he came back and he finished second. Steve Elson got himself third place, and then Christopher Patterson a fourth. The winner in our Spec 2 race finished fifth overall. Aaron Vagley, that's a nice comeback from his previous races, with a sixth going to Michael Shaw. Alex Cofford finishes in seventh despite starting on the front row, and then Bob Kern, another good climb, 14th to 8th for him. Fred Desai, he winds up ninth. He did get a little bit of damage along the way, and then Jeff Jacobson rounds out your top 10.
Gary Wobolt all the way down in 11th place. He is actually the last car to finish the race without having to take another pit stop for damage repair. Zachary LeVay, he is in 12th place. Ian Haycox finishes after two heavy contacts with the wall in 13th. Gary McGreevy, first lap, one car down in 14th. Paul Barbusa, the first car not to finish the race, in 15th. Julio for Colin in 16th place. John P. O'Donnell in 17th place. He did actually finish the race, so kudos to him for bringing that car out once again to finish. Todd Hansen, 18th place, did not finish. Dustin Decker, 19th at last, goes to Donald Fitzroy, 12 laps down in 20th.
Our winner's ready to talk to us. David Gaspers joins us in the booth. David, it looked like a walk in the park to us, but was it a walk in the park for you?
At least it felt like it. Not too much going on there after I got the others out of the draft after turn 1.
Yeah, it seemed like you had a little bit lucky there, as you didn't have to worry about anybody trying to ride your tail like that. I was a little surprised that you pit earlier than the very latest on this. I would think without running into any traffic in front of you, this would be a case of just wait until you're almost out and come on in. But you felt safe to pit a little early?
Yeah, I was too lazy to do any maths, so I just pitted it halfway where it's easy.
Makes sense to me. Well, this was the first race we've had this season at a long track, and then we go right back to the short tracks with Lime Rock Park. You ready for what could potentially be a bit of a bull ring?
I absolutely hate this track. I'm always skipping it, so I won't be there next week.
So won't be seeing David over at tiny little Lime Rock Park. Well, congratulations on another victory in a dominating fashion, we have to say.
Thank you.
That was David Gaspers, your winner. We've got our second place finisher, Dan Sadro, ready to talk to Stefan.
And I have to say, I do feel, David, I hate Lime Rock Park myself with quite the passion. But yeah, Daniel Sadro, second place, getting it handed over a little bit there by the Rex ahead of you. But either way, from 7th up to 2nd, you must be very pleased with that performance.
Yeah, I the ending position was always going to be determined by whether I wrecked or other people wrecked around me, and I basically kept it out of trouble for the whole race, which was really what all I needed to do. And then just unfortunately, Jerry and Steven and everybody just had issues. Fred had his issues, so I kind of just lucked into it.
How is your preparation going into a track like this, especially after coming from 2 very short tracks to Mount Panorama? How is your preparation going in such a race?
Well, you think of the track differently because you know that the walls are much closer to you than they are at Monza. It's not necessarily the length of the track. It's just, okay, if I make a mistake at Monza, okay, I'll be in the grass. If I make a mistake here, it's going to be in a wall probably, and at that point, so you just have to be more thoughtful about being a little bit safer around the track than you would at a different track.
Much indeed. Next track, we once again go back to a very short track, namely Lime Rock Park. How are you feeling about that?
I don't mind Lime Rock Park. It'll be fun for sure. Hopefully we'll have, because it's part of the iRacing included content, hopefully we'll have a real big field, get 40, 50 cars around there. That would be insane.
That would be a little insane. Camel 2T once showed that with 53 cars, I think that was, and then having a pileup of 20 cars. Either way, Daniel Sadro, thanks for talking to us, and once again, congrats on your second place finish.
Hey, thanks guys. Have a good one.
That was Daniel Sadro, and now Joe Peak should be talking to Aaron Vögele.
If we could only get Stefan to say it right sometime. I believe it's Aaron Vaguely. As you were the winner of the Spec 2 race, and it looked like you had quite a fight on your hands for much of it until just about the very end. And did you look in your mirrors and go, where did everybody go?
I was actually watching my mirrors when that happened. I was actually kind of sad because that race was really fun. People were definitely fighting it out, and we were going back and forth, and it was a really fun race to actually participate in. Didn't expect to place as well as I did given how I was doing in practice, but it was really fun.
Looks like it wasn't without your fair share of scares. Was I not mistaken in that you brushed the inside of the cutting coming up the hill late in the race?
There was 2 incidents actually. First, I slammed into the outside wall coming down. I don't remember the the downhill one, but that downhill turn kind of lost it there and slammed it out and decided to take a pit stop there. And then the second one, I did hit the inside of that cutting there and was kind of worried that it was going to affect the speed a bit, but car seemed fine. And we were able to catch up in front of, I think Ian was in front of me at the time. So we were able to catch up with him real well there.
Well, you definitely managed to survive and gained a lot of spots. Is this kind of a turning point for you in the championship? Do you feel like you can help carry this momentum over to Lime Rock?
Lime Rock's actually one of my favorite tracks to race on in general. So I'm really hoping that this momentum keeps up going there, and we can kind of do, I can do the same thing here that we did there.
Well, I got to say congratulations, not just on the Spec 2 win, but a top 5 here at an incredibly difficult track. We hope to see you next week.
All right. See you guys next week.
As Aaron Vagley, who has had a bad couple first races, but a very good third race of the season. We've got to close up for today. So let's thank you, of course, Sim Stickers. Once again, they are a sponsor for the season, and you can find them at simstickers.co.uk. Also, a thank you to iRacing for putting us on IESN. Make sure and head on over to their YouTube page. Click the subscribe button if you aren't already subscribed, and you'll get all of the Weekend Warriors in your YouTube feed. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Steph, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media. You can find us on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. As we mentioned, heading over to Connecticut next time for Lime Rock Park. That'll be Sunday, July 7th at 3:45 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.